All right. Well, it's absolutely a pleasure to be joining you all today. I have got an exciting guest with me today. And so, if you're tuning in for the very first time, my name is Candace Smiley, and I have the privilege of interviewing women who are saying yes to what they want to, saying no to what they need to not to, and they're really getting out there and making a difference in the world. Now, I'm really grateful because we actually host this on the Divas That Care network, and a big kudos over there. And if you're someone who's looking for a network to be involved in that really believes in giving back, they've got a couple of really great initiatives as well as some books that they've co-authored. And so it's a great platform for us to get the message out. Now, if you're looking for the recording of this or you're listening in live and you're wanting to catch up with us later, you can go check that out on the Divas That Care on YouTube or on my personal YouTube, which is just Candace Smiley. So without any further ado, I want to welcome our very first guest this morning. Kelly, you get to be our inaugural guest of this particular podcast. We're pretty excited about that. So let's talk about what's happening in your world. Now, for the viewers who are listening in, we have, Kelly, you and I have known each other for a while. So it was actually quite fun. We were kibitzing quite a bit before we started the interview, which is great because we've got some kick-ass energy heading into the interview. But I would love it if you would just sort of share your story. And then I know you've got some projects that are on the go, which are always exciting. So I guess let's start that off. So without any further ado, Ms. Kelly Filato.
Hey, so thank you for having me on the Divas That Care. I've been following you and Candace, and I love what you guys are doing. And, what I love about Divas That Care is it's all about being heart-centered, and that's so important to me. So, I got burnt when I was 2 years old to most of my body. And so I spent about 4 months in the hospital when I first got burnt. And then every 2 years till I was 20, I'd be in the hospital for a whole month, my summer holiday. And so having to reconstruct the surgery. And so when I grew up, I never felt that I would ever be loved. I never thought I'd ever have kids. I was known as the ugly Scarface girl. I walked past my teacher's desk when I was in grade 5, and someone had drawn a picture of me, and it was a circle with all over its face. And so I never ever thought I would get married or have kids or have a beautiful life. I never thought I'd ever get called beautiful. And so my whole life was centering around me trying to be beautiful and trying to fit in and not be rejected. And so I hated growing up, right? I did, but I always knew that there was a purpose. I just didn't know what it was. And when I was about 18 years old, I went through a phase in my life where I had to know why. Why was I living? What is it? Why did I have to be the girl who got burnt? Why couldn't I be beautiful like all my friends and all the other women in the world? I always thought that I was the ugliest girl in the world and everybody else was more beautiful. And I just felt that, if someone was overweight and they got called fat, well, they could just go on a diet and lose their weight and they wouldn't be fat anymore. If someone had glasses and they were called fluoride, they would just have to get contacts and they would lose that label. But me, because I was going through surgeries every 2 years, I knew that I would always be the Scarface girl. I knew I would never lose my label. And so I did end up eventually finding a man who became my husband. And we did end up having a daughter. And I was so excited about having my daughter because I thought, oh my gosh, what is she going to look like? Am I going to finally know what I would look like without scars? And then I ended up having another baby girl, but she passed away. So I had a stillborn baby at 28 weeks. And that was devastating. And that was probably one of the hardest things I've ever had to deal with in my life. But I knew there was a reason. And when I got pregnant with my twins, I thought, okay, I get it. There's my reason. She gave up her life so we could bring the twins into the world. And so that was an amazing experience. There was like, oh my gosh, now I've got like 3 kids. But then I went through another phase in my life about 10 years ago where I had to stop lying to myself. And there was 2 lies I was telling myself. One was that I was in love and wanted to be married. And the second lie was that I loved my job. And what had happened was my ex-husband now he's my ex.
I was gonna say.
My husband at the time.
Yeah.
My husband got laid off from his job. We were almost bankrupt. And, he told me, he said, you know what, it's time for you to step up to the plate. And I was like, oh, okay, fine. Watch me. Now, I had been a stay-at-home mom because, with the twins, and my daughter, it was just, wasn't financially feasible for me to go to work. I mean, it was just retarded for me to go to work. I wasn't going to make enough money to make it worthwhile. So we decided I would stay home. But then when he got laid off, we did this whole complete role reversal. And so then what happened shortly after that, I had another business at the time. I had a scrapbooking business. And I went to this woman's event and I met Trymaine Hammond. And Trymaine says to me, Cal, you need to sell that business and be a speaker. Yeah. And I said, why? I'm just a burn survivor. So what? And she's like, no, people will be so inspired by your story. So I went home that night and I said to my husband, I said, I'm going to be a speaker. And he said, how are you going to do that? And I said, I don't know, but it's going to happen. And he said, that night, he said to me, he says, I don't get it. He said, who's going to listen to you? Like, you don't have a story. Mm-hmm. You're not like Anthony Robbins with his big mega personality and then mega power, and you're not mega successful. You're not anything. Mm-hmm. Like, nobody's going to want to listen to you. And then he says, and speakers don't make any money. I know, right?
So I'm just chuckling because as you're going through these things of all these things that someone else is telling you that you're not, I was like, does he know you at all? Anyway, it's my experience. Kelly takes up some space, and that's a good thing.
That's right. But because at that point we were bankrupt, or almost bankrupt, we were in a toxic marriage. Mm-hmm. We were just struggling to try and make it in the world. And so I understand why he said that. It mm-hmm. wasn't totally because you're trying to be a jerk. It was because all he could see was the doom and gloom in our lives. Yeah. He couldn't see the world full of possibilities. He could only see doom and gloom. And I get it. I totally understand that. But so then what happened is I had the scrapbooking business. I had my full-time job, and I decided to be a speaker. And so here I am, and I wrote my first book. So I'm doing all these things. Yeah. And so he proceeded to tell me this one night, you're only trying to pull away from the family. And I was like, oh, you told me to step up to the plate. Here I am. I'm stepping up to the plate. And he stayed off work for like 9 months. He didn't get a job. And I was like, what the heck? So anyways, to make a long story short, it was our 24th year together. And it was our anniversary, and went to bed, and I went to the bathroom, and I just started crying. And I heard that little voice in my head say, you've done 24 years like this. You're only 44 years old. Can you do another 24? And no way, help me. I had no idea that it was, my God, my universe that was telling me this. I just thought, it was just that little voice in my head. I didn't realize that it was a higher power helping me to get out. And sure enough, my aunt said to me, Cal, do you need a place to stay? We've got a place. And so anyways, so then what happens is I finally made that decision that I'm leaving. And he told me, you can only leave if you give me the house and the kids. And I was like, oh, okay. And I think he said that only because he thought that would stop me, right? And I was like, I don't want the house. I didn't want the expense of the house. I knew I could go live with my aunt and uncle. So I left and I went and I moved in with my aunt and uncle. And, but I still saw my kids every day, like every morning, every night, and every 2 days they'd come home with me. So then 4 months later, I'm already on to my second book. I'm still got my job. I get called in the office and I get the worst performance review in my life. The worst. And then I had to go talk to the vice president, and the vice president, she knows me. She knows that I'm very, I can do anything, right? And she goes, Cal, you're making so many mistakes, and you've got this world where you're incredible. You've written your first book, you're on to your second, you're speaking, and you're doing amazing things. And then you've got this other world where you come to work and you close the door and you're crying. And you're making tons of mistakes and you're not getting anywhere. And if you had to coach that person, what would you tell them to do? Would you tell them to stay in that job, or would you tell them to go live their passion? And I was like, oh, because I knew what was happening, right?
She's
I
being
knew it.
very gentle. I think we all know what's coming. Yeah.
Yeah. She said to me, she said, sometimes you know what you need to do, but someone else has to make that decision for you. And she said, are you going to be excited to come to work on Monday? Or are you going to be relieved if you don't have to come to work on Monday? And I went, oh, right in the chest, right? I was like, damn it. And I was like, oh man, I know. And I go home and, and I'm upset because I know the writing's on the wall. It's either quit or be fired, right? And I'm reading this businesswoman's magazine. And every second page I'm flipping. And all I can see is follow your passion full time. And then the next page, follow your passion full time. And then the next page, follow your passion full time. And then I come to the middle and it says in big black letters, why do you not trust that God will provide you everything you need? And I slammed the magazine shut and I was so mad. And I was like, I know you want me to be a speaker full time, but give me 3 months so I can pay off my bills and then I'll do it. And I'm thinking, I just left my marriage 4 months ago, right? And so I leave my marriage so I don't have his income coming in. In fact, I was paying child support. And now I'm going to lose my job. I'll have nothing, right? And then I said to myself again, are you going to be excited to come to work on Monday or relieved if you don't have to? And I was like, I go to work the next morning and I send my boss an email. You're right. Today's my last day. And I packed up my office and I left. And then as a result of all that, I became, wrote my second book. I became a best-selling author. I got the Fierce Woman of the Year award. I got the YWCA Woman of Distinction. I got the Queen Elizabeth Diamond Jubilee Medal. I now done 2 TEDx talks. I'm now a 6-time best-selling author. A documentary was just done about my life story called Still Beautiful. That's my whole life is in that documentary. And then what was the other thing I did? Then
There's a list.
And then Goalcast launched a video about my life story that made 9.7 million views. And so all these things happened to me because I decided to say yes.
I really love that because I didn't tell you this before we started, but that's actually the title of my book that's coming out. I'm working on that right now, using this weird time that we're in right now to prioritize a lot of these things. And I, with some tears in my eyes, because these are, I feel like for myself and for the listeners, they're going to hear elements of your story that resonate. And that's something that's been coming up for me lately, is we can't underestimate the power of telling our story. And as women, we're often really bad at that, right? We're bad at speaking out for what we need. We're bad at, like you and I were talking before the broadcast, right? Of saying things like, I want to do this. And to ask for that feels selfish. Yet it's almost unselfish if we're not stepping into that thing, right? Live your passion full out. And I loved how it said, why don't you trust that God's going to take care of you? And I was like, that's what hit me, because that really resonated for me this morning in your story. You had talked about a couple of words that really stood out for me, about being beautiful, about purpose, and rejection. Those are such core challenges that I was just like, and Kelly, I've heard your story like a billion times. I'm sitting here thinking, why have I never heard it like this before? So yet again, the power of telling your story, right? Writing 6 books, congratulations. Incredible. You're also an artist, which we can see your art in behind your shoulder.
Yeah, there's a couple of my painting.
I love it. I bring that up because you've taken your art and put it onto blankets for burn kits. And I do want you to be able to talk about that and some of the other initiatives you got going on. But that blanket, we see that every day here in the house, me and Narnar. So, your impact is felt, and now even more so.
Yeah, it's funny. That's the thing. I love how you talk about the power of the story, because it's very true, where, we're taught that we're not supposed to brag. And so, even me just saying all that last part where I'm talking about all the things I've accomplished, it's like, oh my God, I just hope somebody doesn't think I'm bragging. That's the little voice that's going on in my head, because I'm not bragging. It's time for us to step up.
Yes. You know, and for
And
the women who are listening, you know, this is going to be posted in the Changemakers Cafe. There's a reason why we're drawn to something like that, right? And the divas that care, she's reforming that word diva, you know, and really at its core, it's about a woman who says, hey, I'm something special and so are you. That's it. And we need to do that, right? We need to be champions for each other, which I know is certainly something you've done for me, and certainly within my network, you know, being a champion. I didn't realize that we knew and know the same woman who said to you, I only know you as Kelly. I never knew you before you were Kelly. Does that make sense? So that was a great element to hear,
yeah,
you know, that you had to start somewhere. You didn't wake up and, you know, have a story. We had to draw that out of you.
that's right. A lot of people had to drag it out of me. And a lot of people say, Kel,
Awesome. Yeah.
like, yeah, and Kel, like, why won't you just admit how amazing you are? And it's like, because it's not about how amazing I am. It's about how can I help other people be amazing? Like even my artwork, for example, like that just started 5 years ago. And, you know, basically it was my best friend, Carrie, you know, Carrie.
I do. I
And
love
she said,
Carrie.
Cal, I see you as a painter making, yeah. And she said, you know, I see you as a painter making thousands of dollars. And I'm like, you're full of shit. I've never painted in my life. Why would I start now? And I'm not going to make thousands of dollars as a painter. Like, you're just full of it. And she's like, no, just like do it. Let's go to paint night. And I'm like, no, we're going to drink wine in your hot tub. And, and the very next day, what happened, it's true. It's a true story. Like, she'll tell you. And she knew she had to get me painting. And she didn't know how she was going to do it. And, but anyway, so I saw this painting on Facebook and I was like, oh my gosh, I got to learn how to do that. And but the girl lived in the UK and I was like, well, how am I going to learn how to paint from her? And then I realized YouTube, hello.
Hello.
And
Yeah.
so I go on YouTube and sure enough, she had a bunch of videos there. And that was when I started, I know. And I started, you know, watching her paintings and her videos and stuff. And then I said, oh, it's nap time. I want to go have a nap, right? Because I was so bored with life at that time. And then I said to myself, what does my heart want? And I heard that little whisper say, well, go paint. And I was like, nah, what does my heart want? And then I heard it louder and I go, get up and go paint. And so I had won a paint kit like the year before that. And I didn't want it. I couldn't give it away. I couldn't sell it. My kid didn't want it. And it was, so then I brought it up and I started painting and it had everything in it, like everything. And so I painted all 4 canvases and I put them up on Facebook. And all these people were commenting and liking them. And I was like, oh my gosh, what's going on? And so this one girl emailed me and she said, can I buy your painting? And I said, sure. And she said, well, how much? And I said, I don't know. I've only been painting one day.
I want the one that has the heart on it. I can see that over your shoulder. And I was like, that's amazing.
I know. And so she said, well, I'll pay you $150. And I was like, sold. So then anytime anybody asked me how much for my paintings, I said $150. And so that week I made something like $1,000 off all my paintings. And I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. So I guess my friend was right. You know, I guess I am going to make thousands of dollars on my paintings. You know, most people don't make any money till they die, but, you know, on their painting. So anyways, I had to clarify that. Right?
Wait.
Yeah, I want you to know you can make money while you're alive, but when you're a painter, you usually don't make money till you die.
Oh, I love it.
So, you know, my kids are going to be very rich one day. So,
yes.
But anyways, so then I found a way to take that painting and get blankets made out of it. And so then what I did is I pre-sold the blankets because I didn't have any. And I actually bought I got five prototypes made. And I actually gave one to Wayne Dyer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Wayne Dyer got one 4 months before he passed away. And so he got one of the original 5 prototypes. So anyways, so then what happened is when I pre-sold them, it made more sense to buy 1,000 of them. But then I was like, how am I going to buy 1,000 blankets? Like, I don't have the money for that. Right? And I was really kind of concerned. And I thought, how am I going to do this? And I watched Wayne Dyer's movie, The Shift. And in the shift, it's based on what you do if you're acting in fear, it'll never work.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to act in love. And when you act in love, that's when things work. And so when I was thinking about buying from China, I was like, well, what if I give them all this money and then it doesn't work? Or what if I don't like the blanket and I spend like $15,000 or $20,000? Like, how am I going to do this? And all of a sudden the wheels were turning, all these reasons why I shouldn't do it. And then when I watched his documentary, I was like, oh my gosh, what if I give that blanket that you were loved, you were needed, you were wanted to somebody, and then they feel more loved, or it keeps them alive. Like, I've had people buy the blankets from me and say, Cal, I need to give this to my friend because she wants to commit suicide, and I need to show her that I love her. And I was like, oh my God. And I was thinking about all these things. And then, in fact, one of my blankets, I don't know, do you remember Diana Bose?
I do.
You do? Okay. And so she just passed recently. And what happened was, two of my friends were at the hospital with her, and they said, Cal, Diana has your blanket on her bed. And I was like, what? Like, I knew she had it out at the lake, but I didn't know that she brought it to the hospital with her. And then my other friend Facebooked me, and she said, Cal, when Diana passed, your blanket was on her. And I was like, oh, right? Like, it brings tears to my eyes to think about it, right? Because that's what the blankets are for, is about love. And then when I thought about the love, the money came forward. And I found an investor.
What I think is really powerful, and like I'm hoping that the women who are listening to this interview are picking up on a couple of different things. One, you haven't had it figured out yet at all, but you've been divinely guided the entire way through. And that, staying in love and staying true. I often say, like, that desire that's in your heart, it's there for a reason. And so if it's there, then the way to make it come to pass will actually come. And that's the scariest part, right? You had to leap, and then you were caught by the universe, but you got to leap first. And it's funny because I have a card that actually says, you can't just step off the edge, when you're being called, right? You actually are encouraged to go as far back from the ledge as you can and take a running leap out. And I said so many times I've like dipped my toe in the edge, right? Or kind of wanted to step off the edge. But what you're actually being encouraged to do, and what, you basically did is throw yourself out there and say, okay, I'm all in. And then it's amazing how things come together. Now, we've got about 5 minutes left or so. So I kind of want to open it up. We're going to definitely have all of the links for people to contact you, take advantage of what you're up to, find your books, connect with you. I mean, these interviews are meant to be short and sweet, but to really open people up to the network, right? You are number one wanting to talk to people. So, what do you want to leave people with? How do you want them to contact you? What's the initiative you want to leave us with? I guess I'm going to leave you the last 5 minutes for you to say sort of whatever's on your mind and your heart.
Okay. So I know that we're all in a very tough time right now. And I know it's a day by day, it's a minute by minute. I know even for myself, it's the same way, where it's like every day I wake up, I don't know how I'm going to feel. And it feels like I have to make a choice. Do I want to feel great today and move forward, or do I want to stay in bed today? And believe me, over this past 4 months, I've probably spent 2 weeks in bed, or 2 weeks trying to get out of bed before noon. Right? It's just been, it's those choices that we're making. And every day when I wake up, it's like, okay, what am I going to do to persevere through today? And that's the big thing, is how are we going to persevere through this virus that we're struggling with? And, we can see the life as full of doom and gloom, right? I mean, that's how I felt with my ex, is I felt like I was in, he felt like he was in doom and gloom. And I saw the whole world is full of possibilities. And I still believe that there's possibilities. Mm-hmm. And, even, for example, my son and I have decided to start up a business together. He's only 17. Wow. And it's a monthly tea club. So it's called the Titley Tea Club. And so people can buy like a blender pack where they get 5 different kinds of tea, and you can make your own tea. And so we're looking for people that, want to help us out, get it out there in a bigger way, and, do some videos or social media posts about it so that we can, get more stuff happening. So I'm seeing this as a time to really reflect on who I am, what I want to do, where I want to go, and to take this time to really step back. And like, even, when I did it 10 years ago to decide if I wanted to be married or not, or have my job or not. And now I'm actually reflecting on, okay, what direction do I want to take life in now? Right? Like, what cliff am I going to jump off now? Right?
Running leap, baby, running leap.
Running leap, I know, And so it's just like, even when my boss, made me make that decision, I felt like I was in this nest of this mama bird and the baby bird, and here she is, pushing the baby bird out. And I thought, did the baby bird ever hit the ground? And she doesn't. She might go down a bit, but she always gets up and she flies higher than ever before, right? And so that's what I'm seeing this as. I'm seeing what is next. And when you ask me what is next, it's like, I don't know. I honestly don't know, other than I think it's a really beautiful time that me and my son can do this business together. The other thing I'm seeing is that, because I'm a 6-time best-selling author, I've got people, asking me all the time, Kelly, coach me to write a book. And I just did a best-selling launch for another client of mine last week, and I've got another launch that I'm going to be doing in 2 weeks. And so it's just my goal to really help people get their stories out there, whether it's on stage, whether it's in books, as best-selling authors. Like, this is the time to take action. It really is. It's not the time to lay in bed. And, yesterday I had to tell myself, I've got determined Kelly, who is like really determined to make things happen. And I've got self-sabotage Kelly, and self-sabotage Kelly just wants to stay in bed all day. I know. And so determined Kelly is like giving self-sabotage Kelly, a big kick in the ass and saying, quit wasting time. Like, this is the time to do what we want to do. And so people can reach out with me all different kinds of ways. But if you want, I've got my Perseverance Toolkit. And if people want, they can text the word tool to this number, 1-877-414-1768. So if you text the word tool to that number, you'll get my Perseverance Toolkit. And in the toolkit, I talk all about perseverance and what are 10 things that I do on a regular basis to keep me moving forward. And these will help you, okay? Because if they can help me, they can help you. So they can do that. The other thing they can do is, if they want to book a free 15-minute call with me, go to bookkelly.as.me, and you can book a 15-minute call with me, and let's see how we can work together. Whether you want to be a speaker, you want to be an author, you want to persevere, you want to use your story to get you somewhere, to make an impact, right? Even in this past month, I've been doing some virtual publishing workshops, and I think I've impacted like about 50 people just in this past month who want to be authors and get their stories out there. Like, we have to stop hiding behind our stories.
Yeah, agree.
We do. Like, so many people have told me, Kel, your story has helped me to move forward. And so, I really believe, this is a quote that I made. It's one of my favorites. Everybody always asks, what's your favorite quote? And this is mine. And it's, dreams are meant to be found, not tucked away in dreamland.
That's amazing.
And I remember my grandma would tell me, oh, you can't follow your dreams, like, dreams aren't meant to be found, that type of thing. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Dreams are meant to come true. Simple. They are. You just got to take action towards them.
Dreams are meant to come true. That's like the hashtag from this one. Take a running leap. Dreams are meant to come true. That's amazing. Well, Kelly, thank you so much for joining me today. We're definitely going to have an encore meeting, which I think we knew when we got started. We were going to need.
We shall do that. I'm available.
Yeah.
I'm
so
available anytime.
Beautiful. So, we're going to have links for contacting Kelly. It'll be in the comments, so you guys can do that. Please make sure that you like and subscribe, whether you're on the Divas That Care on YouTube, or you're on Candace Smiley on YouTube, or you head over to Kelly's. Like, just like, surprise, leave the love. Check out Divas That Care. We're so grateful that we get to host this on the Divas That Care network. And so look for us coming to you soon, and we will let you know. Make sure you hit the follow button. That way, next time we have Kelly on, you'll be able to catch the encore edition of our chat here with Kelly. Thank you so much for joining me
You're
today.
very
This was awesome.
welcome.
Okay.
Thank you, Candace.
Take care. Stay
It's been
safe.
an honor.
We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.